Hello, today we're going to have a look at Soviet civil defence masks from the Cold War period, and what we have on the left is a Gp4, followed by a Gp5, next the Gp6, and it has a few other names, and then the Gp7 on the right. And we're going to have a look at how the masks improved over time and what was done with them to improve them. So let's start off with the Gp4 on the left. I'll show you each mask. I'll put them on so you can see what they look like while I'm wearing them. So first, the Gp5 Respirator. This is the earliest of all of these masks, as the name implies, and you'll notice to start with at the bottom that it uses the most amount of metal on the exhale and intake area. Obviously that's costly. The mask also has straps. Again, that's something that logistically you don't want on gas masks if you can make them cheaper and you're mass issuing them. The hose is also directly attached to the mask. It's not a screw-on hose like on some of the other masks. You screw the filter on at the bottom, but you can't unscrew the hose at the top. It's attached to the mask. So if we take a look inside the mask, and I'll just get the straps back over it so you can do that, you'll see that inside the mask there's your air intake, there's your air outtake, all very simple. But there's no Tissot tubes or anything to defog the lenses. You just have to hope that when the air comes up it defogs them. You don't breathe too much onto the lenses to do that. As said, it's a perfectly functioning gas mask, but it's very, very primitive. So again, a mask like this, you'd want to improve it because you're using a lot of materials for something that isn't all that effective.
So that's your Gp4 mask. It's not very comfortable. I don't like the straps on it, but I've tested it and these things still work. So you'd screw the filter on the end of the hose, have that in some sort of packet, and you're good to go.
Next we have the Gp5 Respirator, which is a civilian version of the M41. It was basically the SHM41, I believe, helmet mask that the Russian army used. Few modifications done to it to make it cheaper, but this mask is essentially just a latex hood. You've got two crimps on eyepieces, a standardised intake-outtake port that nearly all the Soviet masks of this period used, which is very cheap to make because you just put them on every mask you want to put them on, and the inside is rather simple. You've got two Tissot tubes that bring their air when you inhale onto the lenses to defog them, and you've got your outtake valve at the bottom. A very simple setup, very cheap to make, and of course this was the world's most mass-produced gas masks. Numbers of these reach 100 million plus for this mask alone, and that's ignoring the other variants of this mask they did. So as you can see, it's a very simple, cost-effective design that obviously worked very well to mass produce.
Gp5 mask, I've talked about this one a lot. It's a very practical mask, quick to put on, very cheap to produce. It was a very, very well designed mask, and it's very easy to find one on the surplus market if you want to get one.
Now this mask here goes by a few different names. The Gp5M is one of them. If it's issued to soldiers it becomes the PMG2. But when issued normally to civilians it became the Gp6. Now this is essentially your Gp5, but you've got ear holes in it that are moulded into the rubber. They're not actually cut because you can see the rubber's thick around the ear hole. And most importantly, it has a plastic voice diaphragm with a metal cover on the front. So what this essentially meant was when they were moulding the rubber of the mask, they could use potentially less rubber because they're moulding a hole there and two holes on each side, and they're putting a voice diaphragm on, which makes the mask more effective. Again, it uses the same voice diaphragm lots of other Soviet military masks used, so that keeps the cost down because you're using parts again, same intake exhale valve. The inside of the mask is completely identical. If you're not aware, Soviet military masks and civilian masks all came in black and white grey rubber. I think it was just what was available at the time, so you can get masks in either colour. The grey ones are more mass produced than the black ones, but in general they use both. Sorry about the framing on that, that's quite difficult to get in to show you on the camera, but you should hopefully be able to see from that it looks the same as the other masks, just with a voice diaphragm there and the ear holes.
The Gp6 as well, as you can see, it's basically just a Gp5. I can hear better, and you can hear me better because it's got a voice diaphragm on it. A good modernisation of a Gp5.
And lastly we have the Gp7 Respirator. The Army used a version of this with triangular lenses called the PMK, but this is basically a much more modernised mask, and I'm not so much of a fan of it because of that. It has rubber straps on it. Inside it's got a mask, sort of plastic piece of thing that keeps the mask in shape, so I'm just going to pull that out. Right, there we go. So the mask itself, as you can see, has straps on it. It has a proper voice diaphragm, an exhale valve that's angled away from the mask, and 2 round eye holes. It loads from the right with a filter there. For the accounts of this video, I'm not going to be putting a filter on any of these masks. They'd all take a filter like that or a slight variant. We now know these filters are confirmed to have asbestos in, so best not to wear them.
And lastly, the Gp7. This probably has the best voice diaphragm of the masks, but I really hate putting this mask on. It's got a weird inner mask that's, I think, designed to make it more comfortable, but I find it doesn't really do that. It does pressurise, but the straps are uncomfortable to adjust. I think the Russian masks work better when they were the cheap hood type designs and not the masks like this. I imagine the later PMK series masks, the military versions, have improved over this, but the PMK1 and GP7 are very uncomfortable. In this video I did leave out the PDF, which is the children's mask, but I have done other videos on that. If you like these videos, please subscribe for more, leave a comment and talk about gas masks or whatever, I'll respond to you. And if you really want to support me, you can support me on Patreon, and that would be great. Thank you very much.